Hi, everybody. Joe Cioffi here, Weather in 5 days in 5 minutes. And coming up tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, everything you want to know about this first of two major storms that we're going to be dealing with over the next 5 days. We're talking flood watches, high wind watches, wind advisories, winter storm, blizzard warnings. Depending on where you are in the country, you name it, it's happening. And that's all tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast at 7:35 p.m. Eastern Time. And I just wanted to give you a quick look here at all the watches and warnings that are up so far. Because it is 1:30 Eastern Time, and there'll probably be some more by the time we get to tonight's podcast. So in the Northeast, winter storm watches in northern Maine. We have high wind watches in coastal Maine, also in parts of northern Vermont, New Hampshire, and western New York, as well as coastal areas from southeastern New England to Long Island, down to southern New Jersey and Delaware. Wind advisories that cover the inland areas from New York State all the way down through the southeast into the Florida Panhandle and all the way west into Texas. Blizzard warnings, northeastern New Mexico, northwest Texas, southeast Colorado, western Kansas, and southwestern Nebraska. Winter storm warnings extend from there all the way northeast into Wisconsin. That's all with the first storm. With the second storm, we have winter storm warnings and blizzard warnings in the northwestern quarter of the U.S., including some high wind warnings as well. And we are going to see that system impact the southern plains and eventually the Great Lakes, Ohio and Tennessee Valley, the Deep South, and the East Coast late this week, probably late Friday into Saturday. The atmosphere is priming up for a major storm, and you can see the moisture that's in the Gulf of Mexico. You can also see what's going on up in the plains. You've got this rotation that is back into western Kansas and Nebraska and down into northwest Texas. So that represents the upper low that's driving all this and moving eastward. This is a major system, no doubt about it, and busy radars already from Missouri down to Louisiana, starting to see the first inklings of severe weather. We've got snow breaking out in Nebraska, western Kansas, northwest Texas, and into northeastern New Mexico. Some showers are starting to break out in southern Georgia and over the Florida Panhandle. We've got some rain there. So this is all coming together for a major storm. Big rains, and I have some concern with the Northeast because of this weekend's snowstorm that we just had. Many areas getting as much as a foot of heavy, wet snow. That's all going to melt and get washed away on top, and then we're going to have 2 to maybe 3 inches of rain or even more from Maine all the way down into Georgia, Alabama, and Mississippi. So there's some serious flooding risks here for the Northeast and Northern Mid-Atlantic states. We're going to have to pay close attention to this. Also, big liquid precip amounts back through the Ohio Valley. And back on the northwestern fringe of all of this, of course, is where the cold air is. And we're talking about heavy snows. Upwards of a foot of snow is going to fall in some places. In the west, the new storm coming in is producing several to many inches of liquid precipitation in the coming days. And it is going to be snow, especially in the mountains in the Sierra Nevadas and also down, in the Cascades in Washington and Oregon, in the Sierra Nevadas in California, as well as the northern Rockies and down the Wasatch in Utah and points southward. So very, very busy. High probabilities of at least 4 inches both in the western part of the U.S. and then from the Central Plains northeastward through the Great Lakes and into southern Canada. Also, with the winter storm watch up in Maine, there's a high probability of 4 inches for the interior of Maine and for central and northern New Hampshire and maybe even back into parts of Vermont. I think the ski areas here could wind up doing pretty well. Storm Prediction Center. I just want to back up here for today because we do have enhanced risk of severe weather from southeast Texas east to the Florida Panhandle. And that, by the way, is going to come with a 10% tornado risk in that enhanced area. I'll show you that. You can see the 10% hatched area there. You don't get that too often in the month of January. And then for tomorrow into Wednesday morning, we have an enhanced risk for the Carolinas down to northern Florida. And here, too, we have areas of 10% risk for severe weather. So looking ahead here as we take a look at the new GFS, What's really amazing to me is that the models now for over a week, for the last 8 or 9 days, have been pointing to a major storm going to the Great Lakes, and they have not wavered at all. Yeah, maybe it was a little east on one run, a little west on another, but the idea of a major storm going to the Great Lakes, it's had it for quite a while, and then it picked up just maybe about 3 or 4 days ago for a second follow up of a second major storm late this week, and it's going to be right about that too. So here's the first one. Weather conditions will deteriorate today across the Gulf states and tonight into Tuesday morning. Rain develops in eastern Pennsylvania to southern New England from south to north during Tuesday morning in the afternoon. The gradient is going to get extremely tight. We're looking at wind gusts of 50 to 60 miles an hour, not just at the coast, but possibly even in inland spots. And we're talking maybe about the possibility of moderate to a few areas of major coastal flooding that could occur at high tide, depending on the timing of the cold front come Tuesday night into Wednesday morning, because you get that wind shift to happen before the cold front before the high tide. That'll help the cause and reduce the amount of coastal flooding. So we're going to have to watch that carefully. Drier air comes in behind it. Thursday and Friday look okay. Here comes the next major storm. This is for Friday, later Friday, Friday night into Saturday. Big impacts here for pretty much the same areas as this storm is impacting. And this is going to be followed by a shot of very cold air across the plains, the Great Lakes, and it looks like this shot will get into the Northeast and down into the Mid-Atlantic states. Okay, Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast tonight at 7:35 p.m. We're going to talk about both storm systems and another one behind it in the long range. So we'll see you tonight at 7:35.